What's going on, guys? It's Matt here with TKW U. Draft is tonight. Hope everyone is ready. Really exciting. Just here, anyone that wants to chat, totally go for it. Um, any comments you got, anything that you have to offer. So you can just let them fly. I'm really excited. Could be some crazy stuff happening tonight. We'll see. For the Knicks, I'm really they have a lot of options. There's a lot of different areas they could go. We've talked about it before. Um, it's going to really depend on what they decide to do. That's what it's going to come down to. So I think we're going to see them take a forward at the end of the day. I'd be surprised if it was anything else, especially if they stay at that number 9 spot. Personally, I'd really enjoy if a Wendell Carter fell. That's kind of the guy that I'm looking at if there's going to be someone to fall. He's the guy that the Knicks should be looking for, but it's hard to say what would happen should that come to fruition. So I guess we'll find out. So I mean, if we're talking the favorite at this point to be the Knicks draft pick, I'd say it's Kevin Knox. Mikal Bridges slightly behind. I think those two guys are going to be really the only two options that the Knicks are going to end up looking at. I think that that's just what it's going to come down to. You're going to have both of those guys will probably be on the board. I'd be surprised if they weren't. Under some scenarios, maybe if Michael Porter for some reason goes earlier. I know the Bulls are really liking him. So if he goes earlier, maybe the Bulls like Knox. I would be surprised if both of those guys weren't on the board, and then it's going to be a question for the Knicks of which direction they decide to go. Mikal Bridges fits everything that they've preached during this entire pre-draft process. He's a defender. He's a hard worker. He has experience. He has a lot of just everything that you want in a player. But the whole question with him, as we've been saying, is the upside. Will it be there? Will he be able to offer the type of, just potential that you're looking for in a lottery pick? That's the question. So someone asked Trae Young or Michael Porter. I think I'd say Trae Young. Michael Porter just makes me worried. I worry what he's going to bring to the game if his offense takes a while to come along. I don't think he impresses me defensively. I don't love the thought of him just trying to figure it out. I just think it'd take him a long time. So I'm worried about MPJ, but I don't think there's any chance he gets to the Knicks, so I don't really think it's something we have to worry about. The Trae Young question, there's been more buzz recently that he might fall and even past the Knicks. The Knicks have not been enamored with him much at all. So he might even get past the Knicks and then go down to the Clippers and the Hornets in that range. So we'll see what happens with him. I'm intrigued because he could go as high as 6, or he could drop down to 13 or something. So Wendell Carter, I mentioned when we first started, he's a guy I really, really like. I love his game. His fit with Porzingis is questionable, but if he's ever there at 9, I don't think the Knicks can pass on him. Reports have been that it would be generally pretty surprising if he falls, so I wouldn't expect to see him there at 9, but you never know. Some teams can talk themselves into certain things. Maybe if a team talks itself into someone like Colin Sexton earlier, maybe the Orlando type of team wants a point guard. I know Cleveland's kind of a wild card in this whole thing, so we're going to see what happens there. Yeah, I agree. The MPJ thing just makes me so worried, but again, I don't think it's something we'll have to deal with. So there's been some talk about the Memphis pick and the Parsons. I just don't think the Knicks have enough and aren't in the right position to be able to make that deal. I think there's going to be a lot of teams calling the Memphis Grizzlies around draft time, around when that 4th pick comes. And I don't think the Knicks are in a position to make a deal like that because they're going to have to give up the 9th pick, obviously. And then you're giving up, a Lance Thomas, Courtney Lee, Tim Hardaway, someone in there that you're going to have to end up giving up in that scenario in addition to another asset. So it could be a future first. It could be a Frank Ntilikina. It's only 5 spots, but it's a big 5 spots. That'll matter in this draft. So I don't know if the Knicks are in the best position to do that. If the Grizzlies are just completely over the moon for Courtney Lee or Tim Hardaway Jr. for that matter, that could throw a monkey wrench in the whole thing, and they could end up. But I wouldn't bet on that at all. I mentioned this when I periscoped yesterday. We should not have any delusions of grandeur about the assets that the Knicks have. No one is desiring what the Knicks have on their roster. It's just the fact. Teams do not want Damian Dotson. He doesn't have any trade value. Teams do not are not enamored with the likes of Courtney Lee. He's a fine asset. Teams like him, but you shouldn't expect him to bring back a lot of trade value or anything like that. And then after that, you're getting into their actual assets, which is Ntilikina, who the Knicks like more than anyone else. But I was going to mention Moutier as having no trade value because we watched him all year. He certainly isn't someone that is desirable in any way, unless you want a guy that just falls to the floor all the time. Shout out Knicks Film School. So this season coming up should be just completely give all the young guys every opportunity they have. So that's what makes this draft pick so exciting. I think they're going to get every opportunity to succeed or fail. So that's what you're going to have to deal with at this point. So someone brought up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I'm not crazy about him either. He seems redundant next to Frank because he's a long guy that's not a great facilitator, that struggles a bit with his jumper. He shot well at Kentucky, but it was on very limited attempts, and he has a pretty ugly jump shot. So I don't love him as an option for the Knicks at all. So yeah, Courtney Lee is someone to watch tonight. I doubt anything happens, honestly. Like if I had to put the chances on, I'd say it's like 95% that the Knicks don't make a deal, 5% that they do. I just don't think the odds of that happening are high. If they do, we'll certainly dissect it at that point. But yeah, the point guard thing, we talked about it. If you guys haven't listened, if you're tuning in, you haven't listened to our podcast with Jonathan Wasserman that we did this morning, definitely go take a listen. He mentioned too, and he shared our concerns and our just general confusion about why people are assuming the Knicks should want a point guard. Trae Young is the only guy that I think out of the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Colin Sexton group that makes more sense because Young is such a unique prospect in his shooting and his passing. The Knicks don't want to pair a Sexton or a SGA next to Frank. It just seems like it would be such a tough pair, and it would take them a long time to get good. I've mentioned it a few times, but when you look how long it took John Wall and Bradley Beal to become a good backcourt, and then think about how long that Frank and an SGA would take to get there. So we're excited about Frank. I know all of us are. So I'm curious if anyone likes Lonnie Walker. I'm not crazy about him because I think Jonathan mentioned it on our pod this morning. He seems redundant to Tim Hardaway Jr., that they have similar skill sets and that the Knicks don't need two Tim Hardaway Jr.'s, and that's for damn sure. I like Tim Hardaway, but we can only have one of him. So yeah, I'm curious, those of you that like Knox or McHale, give me some thoughts on it, why you like those guys better, and I can talk about it. We know that Knox has the higher ceiling. That's what we know. It's up for debate what type of basically polarization these guys have, because McHale is more of, he's going to be here. He's in the pocket. He's going to be a good player. He's going to be a shooter. He's going to defend. Knox, you don't know. Knox has the kind of higher upside. So I agree. Someone mentioned he seems like the perfect gamble. I kind of agree. I think that he's the type of gamble that the Knicks need to take. He's tough on defense. He is not a great rebounder. He struggles he's not a great attacker off the dribble, but it's something he's learning and he's getting much better at. He's a really nice floater in the lane. I think that it's a general question about what you want to do when you're drafting this team. So someone mentioned that McHale's a finished product and fits for a win-now team. That's true, and that's not really where the Knicks are right now. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't take him. But it's a different type of mentality that you're taking if you're choosing McHale over Kevin Knox. Knox is the upside pick. Let's take a gamble on this guy. He's 18 years old. He's going to be 18 when the season starts. Let's see what he can do for us versus McHale, who's 22. We know what he is. We can slot him in and feel pretty good about his production, but what kind of upside can he tap into for us? I think the Knicks are in a position right now where they need to take a gamble because they are not in a position to play it safe. I just don't think they have the type of infrastructure to do that. They don't have any pieces on this roster that you feel great about long-term besides KP and Frank. Those are their assets and their future draft picks. So you just gotta ask that. Knox is the type of guy too that could present a challenge for Fizdale. So that's something to keep an eye on. And whoever they draft, Fizdale's going to have to mold them a little bit. McHale is more of a Fizdale guy. So there's that part of it. And then you got Knox is different. He's a different player. He isn't as adept defensively, but he can learn. Casey Bryant, what's up, man? So about evaluating college defense versus NBA. So here's the biggest problem. College defenses are so much different in that guys are often, especially forwards, are able to pack the paint because there's not much three-point shooting. And they're also, guys like Knox, and I mentioned this a lot with Miles Bridges, those guys played the 3 in college. They're going to play the 4 in the NBA. So Miles Bridges, I think, will be better off playing the four, especially because he's a thicker guy. He can get down in the post. He can defend those guys should he need to. But, I mean, it's really difficult to differentiate the two. They're such different games. I look for the little things like defensive activity, willingness to pick up guys, just length, obviously, on the perimeter. Mikal Bridges is especially he's just chaos creator. I said it a couple times when I did the TKW U video. He just creates chaos on the floor at all times. He's over a block and a steal per game, just always active on the floor. That's not the case with Knox. That could change in the NBA. We could see Knox get into a better defensive structure, be able to learn, and all of a sudden, we mentioned it with Jason Tatum this year. He's a guy that coming out of Duke, we said this guy is going to be a minus defender from the get-go, and he was passable, if not better, for the Celtics. And obviously that's Brad Stevens, and he's a totally different animal. But at the same time, you got to wonder. So, yeah, and Knox is definitely a positionless player. I mean, in terms of a 3-4, you can put him in a lot of different spots. His ball handling is not good enough for him to be a elite ball handler or anything like that. There's a lot of question marks with Knox, but he's, especially when you watch his highlights, he's such an enticing prospect. There's a lot to like. The number 4, well, yeah, I understand that Tatum was better than Knox at the time. I'm just saying that it's a similar thing where especially at Duke and Coach K always play weird defenses. So Tatum came into the NBA and was able to enact his skills a little more. So, and someone mentioned this right now. I see this. Mikal at 18 didn't see the court. Knox led his team in scoring. That's true. Mikal Bridges had to go to Villanova and hone his game. When he was a freshman during their first year, he didn't start, and he was a member of a championship team, but he wasn't a starter. So he had to learn, and he's older. He's going to be 4 years older than Knox, and that's important because we need to be thinking long-term for this Knicks team. They're going to be in position to be a threat in a couple years, a threat for a playoff spot in a couple years. It's not this year. The year after is what the Knicks are hoping for. So you're hoping that a year after this one, you have a healthy KP. Frank has more development. This draft pick starts to show some signs. Maybe the likes of some of these fringe guys, a Troy Williams or a Trey Burke, start to become more solidified as role players. That's what you're hoping for. So the Knicks need to be thinking on that timeline. I think that's how they're going to approach this draft. So if Mikal was 18 or 19, where would he go? That's probably a good question. I think that it would be about the same, I think. I don't think he would go much higher, to be honest with you. I think that he would end up in about the same spot, but we wouldn't have the same type of question marks. Maybe he was more of a lock to go a little earlier. So basically, since I really think that Mikal and Knox are the two options, those are the two guys I want to look at. So Mikal is more of a Fizdale guy because Fizdale is grit and grind. Let's play defense, let's lock in. I don't want any cupcakes here. And not that Knox is a cupcake, but he's definitely more on that side of the spectrum than a Mikal Bridges. Mikal is a tough guy. He's put on a lot of muscle while at school. When he was a freshman, he was a little string bean, so you wouldn't even recognize him when you were looking at him then versus now. Meanwhile, Knox is younger. He's a little more vascular. He has a lot of ability to put on more muscle, and he doesn't get after it on defense as much. He floats in and out of games. Fizdale it'll be easier to implement Mikal Bridges in any offense, but that's the case with any team that picks him. So it's going to be interesting to see with those two guys because I think those are going to be the two guys we got to take a look at. I don't know if the Knicks are in. So you guys keep bringing up the trades. Let me talk about Miles Bridges 1 second. I think that the Knicks stopped talking about him because him and Kevin Knox worked out together, and I think that Knox just blew him out of the water, and the Knicks were more impressed with Knox. So I think that's why Miles Bridges is kind of fallen back a little bit. I still like his game, and I'm excited to watch where he goes, but I think that he'll go more in like the 12 range, maybe even to Charlotte at 11. So what was I saying before? What were we talking about? Oh, trades. So I don't know if the trades are going to end up coming to fruition for the Knicks tonight. They don't have assets that are desirable. We need to keep that in mind. The Knicks, Courtney Lee has 2 years left on his deal. He makes a reasonable amount of money. He gets his threes, he gets his buckets, but he's just not the type of guy that's going to net you a lot of assets in return. So that's something we need to keep in mind here. You have to be realistic about the assets that the Knicks have on tap. They might end up getting another pick in the second round if they ever wanted to move into the first round and gave up the 36th pick in some sort of asset. That's certainly possible, but I wouldn't hold your breath for any big trades for the upcoming draft tonight. I just don't think it's going to happen. We'll see. I could be wrong. I don't think it's going to happen. So don't hold your breath for that. I'm warning you right now. All right, I'm going to answer a couple more, and then I got to head out. So when it comes down to it tonight, when you're sitting there, draft's going on, I think here's my projection of how the draft is going to go. And if you guys have any disagreements, certainly let me know. So I think Ayton's going number 1. We know that to Phoenix. And then I think Bagley's going to go 2. I think Doncic is going to go 3. And then we're going to have to see. Atlanta's been hearing some offers. They've been trying to see what happens because I know they like, maybe Jaren Jackson, but maybe the team wants to trade up for Doncic at 4 or at 3, excuse me. Then you're going to have the Jaren Jackson at 4, the Mo Bamba at 5. Maybe Wendell Carter goes 6. Maybe the Orlando goes a guard, so maybe they go Sexton or something. I doubt it. And then at 7, Chicago is going to take Michael Porter if he's there. And then at 8, Cleveland's the wild card because I think Cleveland wants a guard. So Sexton seems to be the favorite to go there, which I would be thrilled with because he's not a guy I want on the Knicks. He is not a guy that I want on the New York Knicks for a variety of reasons. I think he's an exciting player, and I'm excited to watch him play. I do not want to watch him play on the Knicks. So that's why I think the Knicks are going to end up with those options there at the number 9 spot. It's going to come down to Knox or McHale. If the Cavs ever win a McHale Bridges, then I think it's Knox all the way. Like if Kevin Knox is on the board and Bridges is not, I'd say that's going to be the pick. And I'd say the opposite. If Knox gets drafted before, I think McHale's going to be the pick. I could be wrong, but I think that based on what we're hearing, I think that's where we're going to end up. Trae Young is really going to be, I'm really excited to see where he goes. He's going to be the wild card for this draft. The 2 things that I'm looking at that could be big for tonight are who Sacramento takes it to, which I think is going to be Bagley, but we'll see, and where Trae Young goes. And then if any trade happens, that Grizzlies with the 4 spot, you never know. So it's going to be interesting. I'll give my final thoughts about the Knox Bridges thing, and then I'm going to hop off. But you guys tune in tonight. We got a live show going on around 7:30, right when the draft starts. So same spot right here. Kyle Maggio and I, my TKW podcast co-hosts, are going to be right here, ready for the draft. And then Jonathan Macri hopping on. He'll be at the draft. So we got all sides of this covered. For Knox and McHale, I think at this point I'd prefer if they took Knox because of the upside. And I think the Knicks are in a better position to take an upside guy than they are a guy that they know what to expect that may not have that upside. And I think that McHale has a certain level of upside that maybe he hasn't tapped into yet. But his ball handling impressed me more than I think it did for others. There's a lot of different parts of his game that could progress more. But Knox, his scoring is always going to be better than Bridges, and he's going to be able to offer a lot more. And I like him next to KP because he's the type of guy who can stretch the floor. You'd like it if his defense was a little better, but he'll get there. His rebounding is going to struggle, but we'll see. I'm on the Knox train right now, but I would not be upset at all if the Knicks took Mikal Bridges. He's an easy guy to talk yourself into, and he's a great kid. He'll be awesome as a Knick too. So either one I'm fine with. Those are the guys that I'm coming down to. Sexton's not a guy I want. SGA is not a guy I want. I think if Wendell Carter falls to 9, the Knicks take him. I think if Michael Porter falls to 9, the Knicks take him. I do not think they take Trae Young if he falls to 9 right now, which seems kind of crazy, but I don't think that's the case. So Knox, McHale are your guys. Wendell Carter if he's there, Knicks take him. Michael Porter if he's there, Knicks take him. After that, that's kind of what I'd expect going in tonight. So we'll be back at 7:30 tonight. Keep an eye out, guys. Really excited for the draft. Excited to hop on with Kyle. So until later, I'll see you guys.